Since I am mainly looking at video games that may be suitable for people who have never really played video games before, I thought it might be time to look back at the discoveries and moments and more associated with specific games I've played in my life. This is a series I'm calling Gaming Memories. When you ask a gamer what was the first Legend of Zelda game you ever played, it's very likely they'll say it was a revolutionary one, such as A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time. Instead, my first one was the more surreal and surprisingly different, yet still amazing 2000 Nintendo 64 game, Majora's Mask. At the beginning of the new millennium, the glowing reviews that Majora's Mask and its predecessor Ocarina of Time got from video game critics and journalists were hard to ignore. So I had to try one of them out, and for some odd reason, the one I chose to rent was the newest one, Majora's Mask. What followed after inserting that golden Nintendo 64 cartridge into the console would change my life forever. As mentioned before, Majora's Mask was more surreal and unique in contrast to other Zelda games, especially its predecessor. It was darker and had more of an Alice in Wonderland vibe. At the beginning of the game, you are removed of a lot of precious things. A mischievous skull kid with the aid of two glowing fairies steals your ocarina and your horse Epona, and then uses the dangerous curses of the title mask to turn you into a plant-like creature, a Deku Scrub. This was storytelling in a video game on a whole new level for me personally. While many gamers may have dropped their jaws at the cinematic storytelling of benchmark games such as Final Fantasy VII and Metal Gear Solid, this was my equivalent of that. This was different from kart racing games or playing as Mario the Plumber or Banjo the Bear to rescue a female character. It is stated in the game's prologue that Link is searching for a beloved and invaluable friend, and to have him lose his strength and agility not long after was subconsciously devastating. In contrast, Ocarina of Time had a generally calm beginning in a little forest, where Link could take as much time as he needed practicing sword fighting and other basic techniques. In retrospect, it'd be hard to imagine what my introduction to powerful storytelling in video games would have been like if I had played the predecessor to Majora's Mask instead, as amazing and revolutionary as it was. Not long after your transformation, you enter the interior of the clock tower in the land of Termina. The abstract camera angles and the atmospheric music added to the chills that were already down my spine. You meet the mysterious and quite possibly creepy Happy Mask salesman, who is in Ocarina of Time, who gives you the overarching quest for the game, retrieve your stolen ocarina, and most importantly the title mask of the game that the Skull Kid took for himself, so that Link may be transformed back to human form. And you have to do it in 3 days. When he says it's not a difficult quest, he couldn't be more wrong. After talking to the mask salesman for the first time, you are very limited in the places you can go. Your demeanor as a childish-looking plant creature doesn't even grant you access outside the town. Well, except for glitches. I enjoyed going around Clock Town and talking to the locals, an action more reminiscent of RPGs, the genre that the Zelda series doesn't necessarily belong to, yet borrows many elements from. But during my explorations, I noticed something else that made me partially realize on a subconscious level why the Zelda series was so loved. Again, an aspect that makes the RPG genre so appealing. It's music. The music for Clocktown is memorably catchy and is so fitting for the setting. On top of this, as the 3-day time limit presses on, the tune gets more and more urgent. Countless other music tracks follow this pattern of quality, so it goes without saying that overall Majora's Mask features an excellent soundtrack. But it was the Clocktown tune, and to some extent the music preceding it, that really affected me on an emotional level. But then something happened in regards to how I approached the game, and what the consequences of my actions were. This blew my young mind away. The land of Termina is destroyed by a giant falling moon in an apocalypse, should you fail to save it in 3 days. But here's the problem as far as my gaming expertise was concerned. I had never really played an adventure game featuring RPG elements in my life before, so my young mind had trouble connecting the dots in ways that weren't related to, say, jumping on platforms. Despite not being that good at the game to begin with, and not really knowing what to do, it was the controls and music that kept me going. But I wasn't prepared for the moment when a countdown appeared showing the 3-day time limit was nearly up. I get treated to constant ringing from the clock tower, heavy tremors in the ground, empty town squares, and ominous music that completely replaces the suitably bouncy Clocktown tune. Then this cutscene happens. It became a bit of an adventure, coupled with head scratching as I gradually figured out how to get the ocarina back from the Skull Kid, which allows you to travel back to the beginning of a 3-day time limit, something you're forced to do lots of times in the game. In that regard, Majora's Mask is one of the more difficult and less accessible games in the Zelda series. If my experience with being the Deku Scrub in Clock Town is any indication, the solutions for how to progress through the game are not necessarily obvious, and it may or may not even be that way to you. So despite all this, I did like Majora's Mask, and I still do. As I gradually got older and played it alongside suitably easier Zelda games such as Ocarina of Time and especially Wind Waker, I really enjoyed trying to complete the game, and playing with the puzzles and masks, the latter of which were hinted at in the instructions. I don't know why I didn't play one of the other games instead to introduce myself to the Zelda series, but in retrospect, I really don't mind. In fact, I wouldn't have it any other way. Majora's Mask is probably more complex and intelligent in its storytelling and atmosphere than Ocarina of Time, the game that became my favourite Zelda. Characters having actual lives and possibly dying, lore and mythology that was used from previous games and expanded on, not to mention lovely production values that were borrowed from its predecessor and expanded on with the expansion pack accessory. These were the things that I experienced while playing games in my transition from childhood to teenagehood. The music, the controls, the genre, the storytelling, Majora's Mask introducing me to the Zelda series and gradually changing my perspective on games will always remain one of my most special gaming memories.